All right, Bill, what property are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about an auction purchase on Central Avenue in Albany, New York. It was called Citadel Square.
And you said this was another auction purchase?
Yeah, this was an auction. It wasn't a county courthouse auction. It was more of a auction done by a local auctioneer. Private auctioneers sometimes are contacted by property sellers if they may have difficulty selling a property on the market, or whatever reasons they may want to do, a quick sale just to get something liquidated. So this was a property where it was on my thoroughfare from probably the restaurant that I worked at the time, located in Colony, and the portfolio that we started accumulating in the Pine Hills neighborhood of Albany. This property was in between those two locations. So it was a major thoroughfare that I normally traveled. And one day I see this really big auction sign, and it's probably put up 2 weeks before the auction actually happened. So, I had planned to at least go to the auction just to see what would happen and be part of that excitement.
Do you think having just completed the auction process, you saw that sign and felt a little more comfortable trying to do another one?
Probably it caught my eye just because I had just educated myself of the value of buying auction properties. Not to say that every auction property is a good deal. You still have to analyze the deal just like every deal. But, the auction sign caught my eye, saying, oh, there might be some potential here. Auctions are thins out the market. So a lot of people who are interested in real estate, maybe looking at what we would consider arm length transactions, where, you just go to the multiple listing service and you go through those normal safe routes of buying a property, where as soon as auction properties come about, that will thin out the competition a little bit. A lot of people are a little weary of auctions. It's not as conservative. There's more risk involved. The terms of sale are going to be more stringent, where you're not going to have opportunities for thorough inspections, thorough due diligence. You have to come up with the money quickly. You got to close within a period of time. In this case, it was a 30-day close from whoever won at this auction.
So when you're driving by and you saw this sign that caught your attention, what was the next step? Was there a phone number on there that you called?
No, there probably was a phone number. I didn't think I was a player for this deal. So I just noted that the auction was happening on whatever day, whatever time. It's funny that was December 4th, which I do remember. It was probably 10 a.m., 11 a.m., something like that. But I had just planned on attending, and most likely, just being on the front lawn and seeing what would happen.
What kind of property was this? Another single family, two family?
This was a commercial property right on Central Avenue. It was an old church property. So it had the church, which had recently been converted into office. And then it had the rectory building, which was second floor apartments, and the first floor was a small office. And there was a third building, which was originally a two-car garage, which had been transformed into at the time it was kind of a half-ass barbecue establishment that basically was running an illegal food business out of that building.
So you showed up pretty much just window shop and see what happens. How did you end up winning this thing?
Well, there wasn't a lot of interest. So that's the beauty of some auctions where, like I was saying, the competition is thinned out quite a bit because I think a lot of, conventional people will be just not even interested in auction. It's just something that, doesn't fit their appetite. But for me at this point, I was very attracted to auctions because for the right auction, you can get a good deal. And there wasn't a lot of activity there. So, I'm standing around an auctioneer, probably 10, 12 other people, hanging around. We were able to do a quick tour of the property, 10, 20-minute walkthrough. And next thing you know, everyone circled around, listened to the terms of sale from the auctioneer, and, he started that auction.
Were you hesitant to change into the commercial space?
Yeah. Um, I didn't know, I wasn't planning on bidding on this property. So, I was buying residential rentals at the time. I think, the largest property we had bought was a 2-family. So, we're here at this auction. It was like a 1-acre lot on a corner, 3 big buildings, actually 2 big buildings, 1 smaller. And, this was nothing that I had even ever analyzed or even thought of purchasing up to this point.
Did you go there with your partner Greg, or did you call him later and say, "Hey, I bought a new building. It's a commercial space"?
That was exactly it. I called both my partners at the time because Mike had just gotten involved in property number 4, that 229 Broadway, where, he was a partner on that small single family, and then we bought him out shortly after. But on this particular transaction, I won that bid, and, I had a couple frantic phone calls to Greg and one to Mike saying, I just bought this property, and, it's a great deal, and hopefully, they would be interested because I now had limited time to get this thing closed.
That's great. Full speed ahead. How did you prepare to manage a property that was in a different field than you'd had experience in the past?
Well, it was vacant, so there really wasn't much to manage other than get in there, do some improvements, some value add, some construction work, so we could get it leased up. So, the original challenge was just getting it closed, which we were able to do. And then I was, off to work. So this is now my focal point, where for the next 5 or 6 months, this is where I was spending my days doing rehab work, construction work, getting this improved. So a commercial real estate broker could lease it out. So it was outside of my element, to even be able to know the beginning of leasing, large amounts of square footage to an office style tenant. So we hired a local commercial leasing agent, and they put it on the commercial market, and you wait.
How long did it take for it to get fully rented?
I ended up renting, the front building to a small tenant on the first floor. And other than that, we didn't have any luck at all leasing it. So that commercial agent had some people walking through, not a whole lot. We had a 1-year contract with this gentleman, and, he brought some interest, but, very lukewarm. And we got the property improved, but we were never able to successfully rent that 6,000 square foot church.
So were you not cash flowing on it?
Not really. No, not at all. So we had a loan with a commercial bank. We had money invested in the deal. And at that point, we were just value add investing into the deal. And I would make those weekly calls to this commercial leasing agent, which I'm sure I turned into a major pain in the ass, because I would call him every Friday, wondering what the progress was with finding a tenant. So that was my first experience with this type of space, realizing, boy, do you have to have a degree of patience to be a commercial property owner and wait for a commercial tenant, because it can take quite a while to get it leased up. Much different than renting apartments.
So what'd you end up doing? You just waited it out and
I
it
waited it
worked?
out. In the meantime, I saw what was being done to lease the space. I was already a real estate broker myself, geared towards residential. And at that point, I joined the commercial real estate board locally, because I had just bought this commercial property. So I joined the board, witnessed what he was doing along the way, and just waiting. So once it got close to our contract expiring, and with this commercial broker, I knew that I was going to take over that listing, whether attempting to lease it or potentially just sell the property.
Taking a step back here, how did you fund it?
We funded it through a local bank originally. Once we were successful at the auction, I was quick to start calling banks, figuring out that these banks were not very excited about lending on vacant space specifically. Well, not specifically. They don't like vacant space anyway on conventional commercial mortgages. But take it a step further. This was an old church property that was converted into offices. So, no matter how you slice it, and you're standing on the front lawn, you're still looking at a church. It's just that the inside, it was converted very nicely into first floor office, second floor office. But we found quickly that the banks were very reluctant. So, the scramble was on to get this financing. And fortunately, we did get a local bank that, took a chance on us and this property. They lent to us very conservatively, and we were able to get into the deal, fortunately.
Our office right now is on Central Ave, the same road. Is it pretty close?
It's probably 2 miles down the road. So, I guess the frame of reference is Interstate 87. If you come in to Colony, near the Albany airport, exit 2, you either go to East or to W.
Okay.
So our office now, I'm heading west about a mile to get to our new office. And for this property, we were headed east, so I would go about a mile the other direction, and then we would get to this place. So, probably 2.5 miles apart.
Okay. Driving directions, great radio. How did this end up working out? Did it all work out in the end?
Yeah, it worked out great. I took that listing back. I just marketed it for lease. So if I was lucky enough to have someone interested in leasing the space, that was the original intent, because I was buy and hold. So if we could get this leased up and portfolioed and move on to the next one, that would be optimal. But I also, my patience level for leasing it was growing thin. So I also put it up for sale, and probably within 2 weeks of me taking over this listing, having it for sale, we had someone who came in from Ireland, and my attorney at the time, I've had this attorney for 20 years, and this is how I was able to develop a relationship with him, because he represented the buyer on this deal. And we both remember back, when I sold this deal and he was representing the gentleman from Ireland, he to this day, he calls him my leprechaun coming in from Ireland to buy this buy this property.
How long after you purchased it were you able to sell it?
So I had that 1-year contract with that commercial broker. So when that contract ran out, 2 or 3 weeks later, I had a contract with this gentleman to purchase it. So we were under contract a little over a year after I bought this property, and deal probably took 2 or 3 months to close. So probably 15, 16 months, this property was flipped.
Was there anything in particular that this property taught you that has stuck with you?
Yeah, it's just the commercial game, I had no idea about it. So understanding, commercial lending, what banks' appetites are as far as their comfort zone lending on commercial properties. And also realizing that commercial tenants it's much different game than residential apartments. It just takes much more patience to get it rented up. The upside for commercial property owners with these types of tenants is it might take a little while to find a tenant, but traditionally, usually you're getting a tenant to sign a 3-year, 5-year, 10-year, type lease. So, the wait ends up being worthwhile, because you get a very long-term tenant that, pretty much handles the property much more responsibly, or they're more responsible for items in their space than a tenant would be in an apartment.
Mhm. If I remember correctly, this is the first property that you had sold. Did you get a taste of that sale and start looking at your other properties thinking, what could I get for this one on market?
No, it was still all about building that portfolio. So when we ended up flipping this property, it ended up just being, okay, we just made some money. And the whole lot, what we ended up doing was, using a lot of that cash that we had just made, to parlay into our next, deals that we had been purchasing, so now we're in the search for our original style properties, 2 families in the Pine Hills neighborhood of Albany. And we were able to use, a lot of those proceeds to get into our next deals.
Mhm. Is there anything you would do differently now with an extra 20 years of wisdom and experience?
Yeah, it's at this point, this was the first deal that I was able to flip and come into a windfall of cash. So I had never seen this type of money. And on this deal, I was 50% owner. My other 2 partners, split a 50% share. So they were 25% apiece. And then when this was flipped, we basically doubled our money. And I was able to get half of that. So here I am with a 6-figure type paycheck. So my big regret at the time was running out and buying a luxury car. Looking back, I wouldn't do that. It's all about reinvesting the money into the next deals instead of running out and buying high ticket consumer items.
Yeah, but at that age, it's nice to enjoy it sometimes as well.
You better believe it. I was running around with cash. I bought that car. I bought a few other frivolous items. I felt like I had made it.
That's a good story. It really was your leprechaun from Ireland.
Sure was.
Anything else you want to add?
No, that was that's the highlights of that property. We moved on from there, and I continue to drive down Central Avenue pretty regularly. It's small area, And, I sit there. Oh, one other thing I add to that the one nice lead that commercial broker did bring, and it's another learning experience on commercial property, was this property was right on a corner, and there was a traffic light at this corner, which I found was very appealing to, you know, companies that are looking to redevelop or have their businesses at a particular spot. Meaning, or for example, this commercial broker brought a big corner store gas station player to the table, which, you'll be familiar with, was Stewart's. And, they were interested in this property for their business, to put a gas station in and a corner store. But the main reason they were interested in this property was it had the traffic light with a turn light. So anybody who came to this light, and if they had their operation there, you could easily just have easy access into this property. And that's a key component for commercial retail, that style business. So that was another learning curve of seeing what commercial property owners, specifically corner store, gas station type company, was really looking for. Unfortunately, they wanted to get the property under contract and hold it, basically have rights to the property until they got all their approvals from municipality to do what they wanted to do. And, they weren't willing to put up a lot of hard money to do it. We would be taking all the risk while they were getting their approvals, to do this. So if they weren't able to get their approvals, we just wasted 6 months waiting for them to do their thing. So we chose not to take that risk. And, we didn't make that deal with Stewart's. And shortly after, we were able to do it the way that I described.
Few good points in there. That traffic is so important for commercial real estate for someone who doesn't have the experience and they're just starting looking at properties.
Yeah, that was a big education on commercial real estate, going from zero knowledge to a taste of knowledge. There's a lot of moving parts from different type of commercial transactions, different commercial properties.
Never too many Stewarts out there. We don't have Wawa, but we have Stewarts.
We have Stewart's since then. Jesus was 20 years ago, and Stewart's was a big player back then. They were growing pretty wildly, and oh my goodness, we've watched them since. They seem like they're every 2 miles there's another Stewart's.
I definitely miss those in Tampa. All right, well, I appreciate you sharing, Bill.
All right, thanks, Stephen.
Thanks.